Okay, well, we're rolling right now. I'm going to get that moment of silence here. So just sit, don't make any noise, okay? Okay, that's plenty. You can make noise.
Is my heart still alive there?
No, I'm sorry. You've passed away. We got a good strong
It
signal
looks like
on
an
this. It's good.
EKG.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Or a seismograph.
Right. Well, it is a
Can you
seismograph,
imagine
actually.
if the wrong guys were reading the wrong chart and they didn't know it? Like if your cardiologist is reading the seismograph.
Yeah. It's wait a minute. You look dead.
Actually,
in California, though, you look quite healthy.
Really, you look pretty good to me, but we just lost California.
Yep. Oh, well. Okay, so we are going to discuss today the apologies.
Are you apologizing to me for something?
I'm
Are
not.
you sorry about something?
No, well, not right. No, I'm not right now. No.
But you were once sorry about something, and that
I'm sorry I'm
sounded-
doing this right now. That's what I'm sorry
Well,
for.
I'm sorry. I'm questioning it.
Well, okay.
But neither of us are really sorry about any of that.
Not at all.
No.
It's
So
like,
what does that mean?
remember when we've mentioned in the in past podcasts where we
Past podcast. Say that 3 times fast. Boom, boom.
Thank you.
I thought that was done quite well.
Wasn't it
actually.
though?
Yeah.
Wasn't it
Can you do it
surprisingly
in-
well?
I think that was in E flat. Can we do it in G?
I thought it was in L because it sure sounded like L to me.
All right.
There we go.
Okay.
They. I don't have any idea what we were talking about. Oh, apologies. Sorry about that.
See, but why did you
see.
apologize about the apology?
What we've talked about in past podcasts
Yes.
has been when people will say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, and exactly what they mean. If somebody says, I didn't mean to interrupt, that's exactly what they mean.
Of course it is. But they're saying they're sorry, so can we justify that? in
So the
any form, or-
articulation of the process of deception makes it okay?
I have no idea what you just said.
Neither did I, but it felt great.
It really did
Sounded
sound
like-
good, too. Almost like you knew what you were talking about.
No, I'm sorry if you didn't get it.
Well,
Then
well,
obviously I
I
didn't-
enjoyed it, though.
Obviously, I didn't articulate it as well as I should have.
Okay.
So I'm going to be self-deprecating with my articulation.
Again, now that I believe is outlawed in most of the.
Self-deprecating of the articulation.
I think I've lost you completely now.
I did too. I was trying to turn it into a Cole Porter song.
Well,
It didn't happen.
well, I'm sorry. It didn't sound like a Cole Porter song. Well, okay. But so first of all, I guess we should just mention that you're Dean Foster.
Yep.
And I'm Tom Peterson. And we also have Torin with us today. Hello, Torin.
Hello, talking apologies.
And I'm not sorry about that.
Oh, guess what? Oops. Your culture's showing. Apologies. And people who apologize when they don't mean it, people who apologize too much or not enough. And can that be attributed to cultures around the world?
This is a very uncomfortable topic
Why?
because I don't think people are comfortable with the whole idea of apologizing.
Or maybe they're quite comfortable with it.
Or when that may be a cultural thing. Maybe in some cultures, that's where we default. That's where we go all the time, and it's very comfortable. Maybe I'm talking about certain cultures where they feel very uncomfortable about talking. I'm not comfortable about talking about apologies. I will, but I'm sorry if that's the truth. That's the truth.
Well, that's all we have for today. So, well, it's
I think you can use an apology for lots of different reasons. You can evade. You can deflect. You can say I'm sorry to try to increase the perception of how humble a person you are.
Okay.
There's lots of reasons why you can say I'm sorry, and I think people can be very deceptive about it.
Isn't it often used in a passive aggressive way?
I think that's the point. You just nailed it.
Okay.
Right. I think there is a cultural piece to this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, depending on...
Have we come up with anything yet that didn't have a cultural piece to it?
No, there's nothing that
Nothing
doesn't
that
have a
doesn't have
cultural
a
piece to it.
cultural
I'm
piece.
saying that definitively, and if somebody disagrees with me, I'm sorry.
I think you just defined it right there.
That's an
actually.
I'm sorry, parentheses, you're wrong, close parentheses.
Absolutely. Yes.
See, so there are lots of reasons, lots of different ways you can apologize and say I'm sorry, and it depends on what your intent really is.
Sure.
Like on an individual psychological level, I mean, I've heard people say I'm sorry or apologize about things where it could have meant anything. It could have meant so many different things. It may have been sincere. It may not have been sincere. How many of us have had or even said, I'm sorry, and didn't really mean it, or have somebody say that to them and they don't mean it?
I've never done that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I'm sorry too, but I think I've never done it.
I'm sorry. Who's so sorry? And then there's who's sorry now?
Right. Wait, hold on.
For a minute.
What? If we a couple more measures and we have to get paid.
Yeah, licensing.
Licensing's back again. I will say this: the licensing guy is on duty like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. He's going to jump
on it. He or she is
he
going
or
to
she.
jump on
they.
it.
Let's use the pronoun they for that.
Okay,
I think it's appropriate.
They'll jump on it like that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Can you this is the softball. This is the easy one. Okay, we'll start with that.
I'm already nervous.
No, this is the easy one. Can you name a country that would be prone to saying I'm sorry or a version of that quite often?
There are lots. And again,
I didn't ask for lots. I asked for one. What? What was that?
But
I think you should say you're sorry for that.
I'm really sorry. I have to provide the context for my answer. All right, two come to mind.
Oh, jeez. See? Oh.
All right, the UK and Japan. But it depends, and I'm using these
two.
Okay.
Such similar cultures.
Very
too.
dissimilar, right?
Yeah.
And so depending on who is receiving communication from either Britain or Tokyo, let's say, you might not hear it as an apology, as we would term an apology.
Okay.
But that's because both of those cultures are sounding apologetic to, let's say, my ear or your ear as a U.S. American.
Yes.
But they're using the apology for different reasons in different ways.
Okay. Yeah, wow. Did you do that all on one breath?
Standing on one leg.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
chewing gum and rubbing my belly and all at the same time.
Patting the top of your head, too, which was pretty impressive. You didn't do that?
No.
Okay.
Wait, let me try to say all of that again and pat the top of my head.
Let's not do that. No, I'm vetoing that immediately. Sorry, but that's out.
All right, so here's the thing.
This is the thing right here. Okay, good. We're getting to the thing early today. Okay. Go. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
In Japan, such a group-oriented culture, very powerfully group-oriented.
Yes.
So what you do is, this idea of humility and humbleness is a very highly regarded value. And
throughout much of Asia. Correct?
Throughout much of Asia, but I'm using Japan here as a particular extreme example.
Right. I just thought I'd throw something in so people would know I was still here. That's all.
And the source of this is, there are many sources for this. Okay. It has to do with Confucianism and Buddhism and Shintoism and beyond just those religious influences or philosophies of life. You also have historical precedents that significant group orientation. There's a lot of reasons for it, but the result is that if I'm doing anything, or if I even need to say something that in any way I might think would make you feel uncomfortable or disappointed or challenged in some way, then I can't say it directly. And using an apology up front is a great device for then saying what you need to say. So it's a way of saying, here's kind of how I feel, but I'm really, really sorry if this hurts you or harms you or makes you uncomfortable in any way. So the use of an apology is a terrific technique in Japan. When you say something that advances, let's say, your agenda in a business meeting or even just a casual meeting on the street, if you're trying to get something done and you're not sure how it's going to be received by the other person, apologizing right up front is a good way to start, right? Well,
Sure.
It's not that dissimilar, right? If we pass somebody on the street in New York, I might say, excuse me. Or if I need some help for something, excuse me, but how do I get from here to there? Or would you know, whatever it is. But in Japan, you really want to elaborate on that. And I'm so you would rather say, I'm so very sorry to bother you, and I hope this is not an inconvenience. And
I'm hearing that almost like someone who, in a business situation in an office, maybe goes up to a door, taps on it, and then opens it up, and there's people in there when a meeting, and says, "I'm sorry to bother you," and then goes on from there. But you're saying it's a much more widespread impact in Japan.
yes, it's positively valued,
Okay.
strongly valued, and if you don't do it, you're kind of looked on as barbaric.
Okay.
You're not being sensitive to how others might feel by your comments.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in Britain, you have this interesting thing where coming out of a much more European tradition, we're not coming out of a Confucian or a Buddhist influenced tradition.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of odd, actually, that you have this strong emphasis in Britain on, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, pardon, right? All of those things.
Just sorry is very commonly heard there.
All the time.
Yeah.
Sorry. And what's the difference between those three things? Sorry, excuse me, and pardon.
Mm-hmm.
There are very subtle differences. I would love to hear some from some of our listeners who might be British who could articulate that for us, because I think I have an idea, but I'm not British myself, so I wouldn't necessarily use these.
Yeah, because we're going to filter it, as you often say, we're going to filter it through our culture to make decisions on what they mean, as opposed to the person who's actually been raised in the culture defining it.
Yeah, I think sorry is sorry, and then the unsaid part is the parentheses, and it's sorry to bother you, but close parentheses.
Okay.
Right. Pardon, I think, is the British way of saying, say that again?
Yes. Which can be used here, but we don't use it a lot like that.
I think there was a time when it was used more here like that than it is now. Here being the U.S.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
Right. And then there's excuse me, which is, again, in Britain, my take on that is, yes, it could be, I'm sorry I said what I said, but more likely it's a way of asking for some sort of accommodation.
Like getting past someone or accidentally
Right.
bumping into them or something like that.
Yeah. And I think that's a subtle variation of sorry.
Yeah.
But it's the use of sorry in a very specific circumstance.
Okay.
Right? But both of those are very different from pardon.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon is say it again, please.
Okay. In your interpretation of the British use of it, right?
I'm seeing it that way.
Yeah.
More
okay.
like
well,
that.
we should please help us out a little bit. If you are British, let us know what you think about that, because that would be a huge help.
And if you disagree, don't start with an apology.
Right.
Don't be sorry for disagreeing.
Yeah. Or go ahead and be sorry for disagreeing if you can't help yourself.
Yeah,
Go
of
right
course,
ahead.
because we
don't
all
want you
default
to
to our
not,
culture anyway.
right. We don't want you to not contact us because you're afraid you'll say the wrong thing. We'll give you a blanket. You can put in a blanket apology for whatever you do, and we'll accept it. Now, unless you don't like what we're doing, in which case, no, don't.
No, we're not sorry about that.
We're not sorry at all.
No apologies. Here's the thing. Interesting.
Wait, I thought we already had the thing.
No, we've got lots of things.
Oh, there's multiple things.
We got the all thing
all
right
things
here.
for all the people.
All
the
things
time.
considered.
All right. So do you remember what the thing is again?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Well, I do.
Oh,
We
that's
talked about
surprising
this.
right
Well,
there.
In a previous episode, we talked about the Icelandic all thing.
Oh, yeah.
And for those listeners who don't know or don't remember,
or if you haven't listened to it, go find the islands of Iceland and Malta and listen to that episode.
That's right, because we talked about the all thing, which is a unique Icelandic. I'm not going to give it away anymore.
No, that's right. Go listen. Go listen again.
So what was the thing I was talking about?
I have no clue.
Oh,
In fact,
so here's the thing.
Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. Thought I was going to get away, but
All right. Yes. So I'm walking down the street in Tokyo.
okay.
Right?
Right now, you're not. You're in the studio.
But I'm
just
setting a
sitting there.
scenario.
Oh, and now you're knocking over your water glass. That's what that noise was in the background. And I'm waiting for.
I'm sorry.
There you go. All right. Now go ahead. Let us see your thing.
Now, here's an example of how we have to be careful about not overgeneralizing cultures being similar just because they're near each other, right?
Okay.
Let me take my example and move from Tokyo to Shanghai or Beijing, China. Mm-hmm. And I'm walking down the street and I bump into somebody. It's crowded, big cities, right? Okay. Or actually, somebody walks down the street and bumps into me.
Okay,
sure. An anonymous, a strange Chinese person. Not that they're strange. But
wow. Okay, now we're in trouble.
English is too complicated. Or maybe I'm not that competent with it, and I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, there you go.
It's just my first language, and I'm losing it.
Let's just assume that the person who is walking down the street bumps into you.
They're not strange at all.
They're not strange
they are
at all.
Absolutely together. Okay?
They are, right. And they are
but
in
to
Shanghai,
me,
however.
I'm the stranger. Yeah. I'm the stranger.
You are in Shanghai. You are the stranger,
and I'm also strange.
That's for sure.
I think if you put me up against most anybody, Chinese or not, I'm going to be the strange one.
Absolutely. There's no argument happening here.
And I'm not even apologizing for
no,
that. And
you
should apologize for agreeing with me.
Oh, I don't think so. I'm just verifying facts. That's all I'm doing.
Really
I know that's not common these
that.
days, but I'm verifying facts.
All right, so here's what happened.
Oh, please,
Walking
go ahead.
down the street.
In Shanghai.
A stranger.
Yes.
A Chinese
stranger to you.
A native of China and Shanghai.
Fine.
Is walking to me, bumps right into me.
Yes.
Right, and doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this happened to a colleague of mine in a swimming pool in Beijing. They were swimming, and a Chinese guy is swimming in the opposite direction and swims right into him.
Okay.
It's under the water, right? Okay, so you could say he didn't see him, but he swam right into him, and he jumps up out of the water, the guy who's the swimmer, and looks at him and starts laughing.
The person who bumped into
the Chinese
him
guy
is laughing.
Who swam into him.
Yes, is laughing.
He's laughing.
Okay.
Right. And so my colleague is like, wait a minute.
That's offended.
Because
your colleague was from Europe, from the U.S.?
He's an American.
Okay.
You just swam into me. You just caused the accident.
Yeah.
And I expect an apology.
Okay.
And instead of getting an apology, I get you laughing in my face over this. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm walking down the street in Shanghai, and an old Chinese lady comes barreling by me, and I'm obviously in her way, and she sticks her elbow out into my side and pushes me away.
Right.
And I'm going, wait a minute, lady.
Yeah.
I'm from New York. I know about crowds, but you don't have to stick your elbow into my side.
No apologies are happening.
No
here.
apologies, nothing.
Well, that sounded intentional right there.
Now, if I take the same scenarios, kind of like that, and I'm on a street in London,
yes.
if I bump into somebody,
Oh my gosh, you'd still be there. They'd still be saying sorry.
We're both standing there saying, "I'm sorry." No,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
my fault.
Whose
Yeah,
fault
sorry.
is that?
Yeah.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry you feel that way, and it goes back. So, what's going on here culturally? Because there's something. Where we have these in London. If you bump into a stranger, you apologize immediately for offending them.
Yeah.
And then in China, why do I even have to apologize to you if I bump into you?
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? Hang on to that thought for a second, because we've got a little bit of business to do and we're going to take a break. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to do that. And when we come back from the break, you're going to address that. And Torin's going to add something that seems really hammers home this whole idea of the Brit apology.
Well, hammer away.
Well, all right then.
I'm sorry.
While listening to this, you may think, hey, I wonder, well, if you have a question like that and want to ask us, there's a couple ways you can do it. One would be through email, which is oopscultureshow@gmail.com. That's OOPS cultureshow@gmail.com. And then there's also our handle on Twitter, which is Oops Culture Show. That's OOPS Culture Show. I know. It's not original, but it works. Okay?
All you're seeing is the back of that elderly Chinese woman moving away from you.
Yeah.
Flailing that elbow out to clear her way on other people.
What's behind all this?
I don't know. That's why you're here. Oh, no. Now, this is called I'm sorry, which is kind of, what is that? That's in the U.S. That's being, I'm sorry because you're so pitiful, I believe.
In China, Asia too, and to some degree similarly in Tokyo.
Okay.
But let's use the example there. Very group-oriented cultures and very relationship-based oriented cultures. So if I have a relationship with you, and the relationship could be as simple as a third party introduced me to you, right? Then I have an obligation because I know you, because I've been introduced to you, because you are somebody to me. We have some connection. Therefore, once that happens, then I am very, very concerned about your feelings, and apologies are very, very much a part of how we get things done.
Okay.
But until I have that relationship, you are just an anonymous number on the street. You mean nothing to me. I mean nothing to you. We have no obligations to each other. See, in Chinese culture for 5,000 years ran on this idea of guanxi, which is obligations to take care of each other. So if we have a business relationship, then we are very careful with each other. But until we have guanxi, I don't know you, you don't know me, and in some cases, we're fully capable of actually harming each other until we have a reason not to. Now, therefore, if I'm walking down the street and you're blocking my way, right, I'll elbow you out of the way. I know I'm not going to cause you, terrible harm.
Right.
And there's no apology necessary because we don't have any obligation to each other.
Okay.
I remember standing on a street corner in Seoul, Korea, and I step outside of the hotel room to get a taxi, and this taxi comes, and as soon as the taxi pulls up to the curb, these two other Korean guys leave the hotel and jump in front of me and jump into the taxi. Now, not so dissimilar to the behavior of a lot of people in a lot of big cities. I mean, I've seen that happen in New York too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But these two guys did it with such, it's okay, like I'm not trying to.
Is it okay?
I'm not. Exactly. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get away with something. It's not like I know I'm doing something bad, but I'm going to get away with it anyway.
Right.
No.
This is the way the game is played.
I don't know you. You don't
Yeah.
know me. We
Yeah.
don't owe each other anything.
Ah,
All right?
okay.
So
Now, again, you're speaking about that a little more broadly in the Asian context, or are you speaking about that specifically about Korea, South Korea?
I think we're talking about, you'll see evidence of this kind of behavior.
In one way or another.
Yes, in places where relationships drive behavior,
Okay.
not rules and processes.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Or have
good.
traditionally. Now, by the way, most of these places are in tension over this,
Yeah.
right? Because they know that the rest of the world might not subscribe to this way of doing things.
Right.
And so the idea of applying some sort of protocol or etiquette or even a moral reason not to do that is a real consideration today. Right? So not everybody is going to behave this way, but traditionally, and in these cultures, these traditions go back 5,000 years, so
Right.
they have a lot of weight.
Yeah, yeah.
So traditionally, though, this was an acceptable behavior.
Right.
If I don't know you, hey,
Sure.
So, now, once we know each other, then we're very, very careful about our human relationships.
So does it swing, when you say very, very, meaning it swings?
It's very much the other way.
Much to the
and
other
then you
side.
get all these apologies all the time.
Okay.
Right? But until that happens,
Yeah.
there's no reason to apologize.
Yeah.
Then you take the flip side. You go to London,
Right.
and as soon as you bump into a stranger, then you're setting off this whole apology bomb that goes
Right,
back and
right.
forth.
Sure.
And so what's that about?
Yeah.
Why do we apologize to strangers?
Uh-huh.
Right. And then when we get to know each other, once we get to know each other, then we can act much more truthfully with each other.
Right.
So that it's once the relationship starts in London, then we can be honest with each other.
Right.
But until that time, we have to be very respectful of intruding on or causing any kind of discomfort to the stranger.
I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
a Korean friend of mine said, actually once, he says, it's very strange. In the West, you're very, very kind with strangers,
Yes.
but not so kind with the people that
closest
you know.
to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in Korea, we're extremely kind with the people who mean the most to us. But why do we care about strangers we don't know?
Right. Right.
So there's a logic to both of these things, right?
Of some sort, of some kind. Yeah, sure. That's really interesting.
And now, why did the Chinese guy in the pool in Beijing slam into the Western swimmer and then come up and laugh at him?
Right.
And-
But what is exactly what was the reason? Did your friend ever find out what the reason was behind the laughter?
Yeah, sure. Well, the laughter, that's the cultural piece.
Well, it is, but I'm wondering, is that an embarrassment?
Exactly.
Okay.
The guy realized he caused an accident.
Yes.
He was at fault.
And
of
that was
something
the
he didn't-
reaction.
all right, so anybody can do that,
Sure.
right? But it's about the reaction.
Yeah.
Instead of getting an apology, the more important issue in Chinese culture, especially since you're a stranger, it's like the old lady with her elbows in my ribs.
Right.
The more important issue with the stranger is to make the situation comfortable, because clearly what you did was you caused the situation to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
You made a mistake.
Yeah.
So you lost face.
Okay.
And you caused the bumpy to also, or the bumper, I don't know, to also lose face.
Maybe the water was cold. That may have created the bumpiness.
For whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
So the way to set everything right
Uh-huh.
is to laugh about it.
Yeah, sure.
And please join me in the laughter.
No, okay.
The response from the Western swimmer should have been to laugh with him.
Right. Okay. No, that's interesting. That's unlike road rage, right?
Yeah. So now
we're on the other end of the
let's look at
spectrum.
some of these other cultures.
Right.
Let's look at the U.S. where all you got to do is
Well,
get in your car and look at somebody, and it's like I'm chest bumping you. Already.
Right. Yeah. Now we're in total confrontation. Right. Until most of people, until you get out of the car, and then it becomes a different approach. But if okay, let's jump back to England now. for a second, because I mentioned a little earlier that Torin had this this article, I believe, Tor, that right?
That's right.
That he read in the New York Times regarding trains and primarily England, I think, and
Right.
and apologizing.
Oh, I believe I saw that article.
Did you?
Because they weren't running on time, and so
Yeah. Well, Tor, what, fill us in.
Yeah, I was talking about this one railway company in the UK in particular, and how there had been more schedule changes than usual, more upgrades going on than usual, so there were more complaints coming in to this railway company. So it sort of started there, the article began there, but then it generalized a little bit to talking about the different railway companies in the UK and saying how typically there's a lot of apologizing going on. In fact, it was saying for this one railway company, Great Western, they will, on average, submit, or I should say tweet, so they'll submit on Twitter over 100 apologies per day. And there was actually one other UK railway company that tweets out more apologies per day. So this was not uncommon. And in fact, there's a website that you can go to that collects UK railway apologies called sorryfortheinconvenience.co.uk. So you can go there and see those apologies for yourself. But it was saying how Great Western has their own social media team. I think there were 6 people on the team where their full-time job is to wait for complaints to come in on Twitter and to reply to them in real time and apologize, and to make those apologies as personal and as warm as possible. And the article even actually sort of related back to the last couple of episodes that we did, because it was mentioning how, just to what, Dean, you were talking about, where there's a lot of apologizing going on, generally speaking, in the UK, and how the word pardon comes up over 300 times across all of Shakespeare's plays. So it connects right back to Shakespeare that we were talking about the last couple of episodes, and again, this idea of a lot of apologizing going on in the UK.
Right. First of all, that's an amazing number of apologies in for the train people. I mean, I'm thinking about in especially in New York, in this whole northeastern United States region, where the train system is basically one gigantic disaster on a regular basis, and they're talking about all sorts of work being done, which is a good thing, but it's a mess. And nobody's apologizing for anything.
Wait a minute. A public works project like transportation, based on the premise of individuals giving up their personal private right to get around in their own personal private vehicle, isn't working in the U.S.?
I don't know if we want to go that far. I think... Yeah.
I think that idea is changing, by the way. But
well, it is.
We'll come
it's
back
going to be
that
an
in 20
evolutionary
years.
process.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe. Unless there's a major thing that happens to move it along. We don't like to give up our own individual things in the United States.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's a very strongly individualistically oriented culture, and anything that challenges the individual's right to do whatever they want is at the expense of and to be in competition with the rights of other individuals is considered an okay thing until it reaches a point where it becomes so obviously not doable.
Great. That's another podcast, and which we'll probably get to soon. But right now, so before we get away from the article, the idea of I almost hear this as what you were talking about before, but it being used a little differently. And when I say that, I mean the apology ahead of the situation, so that it almost sounds like the greater use in this area with the trains is being done because it may be able to soften the blow. And then protect those who are creating the problems, and maybe not. I mean, they may be trying to do good things, but there's going to be difficulties, hardships. It's going to be making something that is used in the UK. The train system is used extensively.
A small island and getting people around. I mean, that is where the Industrial Revolution began.
And
historically,
in
they
London,
built the trains.
Tube
right.
is a vital, thriving part of London life. So all of that, along with the regular train system, which all of this apologizing is coming from, it sounds to me that, don't you think, or am I misreading this?
Well, I think you're right. I think that I don't want to say that. I don't want to imply that there are people in Britain who wouldn't think cynically around this, and who wouldn't be surprised that they were having to make all these apologies, and that they were very disingenuous with these apologies. I'm sure that there are lots of folks who would feel that way, and I'm not going to say that's wrong because I'm not experiencing the fallout the way they do. But at the same time, I think there is an element to this that is genuine, where it is coming from a place where, from a cultural perspective, we're having to admit that something is wrong.
So it's really, there is an honesty to it, you're thinking.
Yeah, I think
an obligation, perhaps, a little bit obligatory.
Right, and I think that element is missing in the Northeastern train system.
Oh, absolutely.
where I, number one, because I can say it, because I am here and I am experiencing it, can be very cynical about it.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't believe that there is any real sense of apology.
Right.
For what's going on, or any real caring for the consequences of what this does to the individual, because we don't have that piece built into our culture.
No, in fact, I'm going to jump in and say, again, because of coming from the U.S. and the northeastern U.S., that the idea would be they're not going to start to apologize until somebody comes after them with a problem that they may have caused. And even then, they'll probably try to get to defend it before they revert to apologizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the reasons why the system is working the way it is have greater validity than the consequence that it's causing a great deal of inconvenience and suffering.
Sure.
And so therefore it is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that missing element of sincerely believing that, gee, things are not right and we're going to make it right. And until that happens, we're sorry about it.
Right.
That's just not baked into the U.S. DNA.
Yeah. Well, we're done.
By
Actually,
the way,
we kind of are.
But I gotta say,
as you know, it takes us a while to finish these things.
There are a lot of other cultures we need to talk about this whole thing about apologizing for.
Okay.
Not just
I'm guessing
Japan
that we're
and
going,
China and
in
the UK.
fact, we will. Hang on, I'm going to put my mouth back on. Hang on, I just fell on the floor. Let me get it. I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, we will address this.
We will
numerous times in the future. We will come back, as we will be doing with other subjects that we've already addressed, that we will be doing in the future as well.
Let's talk about those cultures where even the hint of an apology is considered, we're never going to do that.
What? Oh.
No, you and I will do that.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was really
I
thrown
put that
off
in quotation
there for a minute.
marks.
I think our train has left the station now. That's So, Torin.
Hey.
Torin, we want to thank you for bringing us the information on England.
Sure,
and
I'm sorry I didn't bring it earlier.
You don't have to apologize.
Okay.
Well, by the way, I'm sorry that we didn't do grammar time in this episode, because I know everyone loves grammar time. Not grandma time, but grammar time. It's
Everybody feels close to grandma time.
Do they?
Don't they?
Well,
Well,
never
all
met
right, maybe
my
not
grandma,
everybody.
that's for sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We could look into that. Elderly people and the relationship in their families throughout cultures.
Nuclear families and
I'm
extended
sorry.
families.
Are we having some sort of radiation going on, or
it's possible.
Nuclear?
Yeah, you live to a certain age, you might need some.
I will say thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Tom,
for your insights. Once again, it's been stimulating.
Good.
I think I'm sorry for using that word, but it's been stimulating.
And if I've offended you or
Yeah.
any of our listeners in any way, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Oops.
Your
culture's showing.
Sorry. Smell you. Just want to bother you one last time to say we're a brand new podcast here at Oops, Your Culture's Showing, and we could really use your help by subscribing to the podcast. And not to mention that if you hung around this long and you liked what you heard, well, this makes it just easier for you to get the podcast. They'll pop up for you whenever they're released, so you can listen to them on your phone or your computer or however you listen to them. And it's easy to get, too. Just subscribe using iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. It really isn't hard, and we could really use your support. So, from all of us here at Oops, Your Culture's Showing, thanks.